All 4 football teams in the Wasatch back in action tonight. Find out who faces who and what will be necessary to come away with some big-time wins. Also, find out what the South Summit girls volleyball team has to do ahead of the state tournament, which kicks off tonight in Orem as they search to get back to the state championship. And finally, Bren Staples of North Summit previews their wrestling season as it is just over a week away. It's a brand new episode of The Scoreboard and coming up right now. Well, the South Summit Wildcats were given the number 11 seed, which means that they got a bye in the first round. And tonight, they have a tough game against Juan Diego down at UVU. It's going to be a fantastic game, but we've got to wonder, what are the matchups going to be like, and what is it going to take to get back to the state championship, which they once competed for just a year ago? Let's take a look over at South Summit Volleyball and what they've been up to this entire season and what they need to do to get back to state championship status. Hey everyone, right now we are joined by Addie Williams, the senior over at South Summit. And Addie, you've got a big week ahead of you. How much are you looking forward to postseason?
Postseason, I'm going to miss it so much. Being a senior, I mean, this year has been so fun. We've worked so hard. And past 4 years, it's been a blast. So postseason, it'll be nice to have a break, but definitely going to miss it.
Going into this week, you've got Juan Diego tomorrow, and that's going to be an 11 seed versus a 6 seed. How do you feel going into that game against a tough opponent in Juan Diego?
I feel very confident. I think our team has so much talent. We have a huge opportunity, and I think we're just going to work really hard, and we're going to put everything out there.
The game is at UVU. I'm just curious, what is it going to be like playing at in such a big area, such a big arena, I should say? Does it seem bigger? Does it seem like it's higher stakes because it's not, here in Camas or one of the other 3A schools? Does it seem bigger because it's down in Orem, in Utah Valley, at a college, and things like that?
It does seem a little bit bigger. It's definitely like, ooh, it's our last games. Like, it's everything right here. We take every game as knock this team out, and just focus on the game. So that's how we kind of go about it.
Yeah, I know you haven't played Juan Diego, but do you know anything about them, specific players that play well, their style, or anything like that?
They have a really big block.
Oh, okay.
We do know that, and their middles are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in terms of trying to play around that or try to, combat that, how do you see your team playing against them in that strategy, I guess I should say?
I think our team has a really good defense. We focus on that, and we highlight our players, and we really communicate on that. So I think we won't struggle with the block. We cover really well. We've been working on practice with our certain things to go with the team, and yeah, I think we're ready.
I know you talked a little bit about how much you're going to miss the team, but what has this season been like in terms of the wins and the losses? 15-4. I believe last year you were 15-4 too going into the playoffs. So what has this team been like this year in comparison to years previous?
I would say we've had more hardships this year. It's been definitely a challenge, mentally too, for our team. We've just had to work through things and just take it step by step, work with different challenges. We've worked really hard, mentally with the team and building a team, are bonding really well together. And from past years, every year is definitely different. I feel like in past years, I'm a senior, so now I'm the leader, all of us seniors were the leaders, and in the past we kind of look up to them. So just taking a different role.
Yeah. What's it going to be like? I mean, last year you made it to the state championships. You lost in the state championships. Do you think this team has the talent and the skill to get back to the state championship again? And if so, how do you think this team does it in terms of strategy, I guess I should say?
I do. I have full confidence in our team that we have the talent to make it there. We're just going to have to put everything out there and use all of our skills, and everyone's got to be all in, and we all got to show up, Not one person can carry, and I think our strategy is communication too. We just really need to talk about it, and yeah.
You were seeded 11th in the RPI for this, so you're seeded the 11th seed going into it, facing a number 6. It's going to be some tough teams ahead to get to the state championship. How did you feel? Do you feel like you're deserving of the 11th rank, or do you think you should have been a little bit higher?
We had a tough region. That's just kind of how it went for us. So I think how we were placed, we're just glad we didn't have to play a playing game, and we're ready to put in the work to work our way up.
If there was one word to describe your senior year, what would it be?
I just put connected. Yeah. I think connected.
What is the number one thing you think you're going to miss about this team when the tournament's over, when things are, when you're coming back to campus for the last time? What do you think is the number one thing you're going to miss?
The girls on the team, just our bond. We talk every day at practice. We talk about everything, like not even just volleyball. We talk about school. We all have the inside jokes. I mean, I don't know, just everything. I miss all the girls. And
then last question for me. Every single player is wearing some sort of sticky note with a quote on it. What is that, and what does it what does it represent?
So we have a theme for the week. It's hard things don't stop extraordinary people. And so each day we've had kind of a different thing. We've had like white lies, that's motivational. We've had opportunity has been a big word for the week. And the quotes just kind of represent something that it's like our favorite quote. And so something that all of us can like read about each other and just kind of get a feel for what's everyone's mind. And so mine is float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Well, what about that is meaningful to you?
My mom, she tells me this quote every week, every game. And so it's kind of meaningful for me.
Last question for me. How has practice been this week leading up to these big games on Friday?
Very fun. Very upbeat, very inspiring, motivational. We are just working really hard and using everything.
Well, it seems like the team's loose, team is ready. Well, we absolutely cannot wait for it. Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. Good luck. So November 7th is the day where we kick off a lot of the winter sports. Basketball tryouts are going to be going on all around the Wasatch Back. But the other big winter sport that we often talk about here on the Scoreboard is wrestling. Brent Staples over at North Summit Wrestling has spent a lifetime in the room over in Colville, and he actually got the chance to sit down with us to talk a little bit about this season, what he's looking forward to, and he believes they're one of the top teams in all of 2A. Hey everyone, right now we are joined by Brent Staples, the head coach of North Summit Wrestling. Coach, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you.
Well, we are super excited for this wrestling season. What has it been like getting prepared for this upcoming season?
It's been very exciting getting prepared for this upcoming season in particular. We have a lot of returning members of our team, and so that's been nice to know that, hey, we've got the solid wrestlers coming back again this year. So we've set up a pretty good schedule this year, knowing that we have a good amount of kids coming back.
Yeah. How many kids are on the team this year?
The exact number I can't tell you because practice doesn't start for another week or two. But I'm looking at having about 25 is about what I'm expecting.
And so in terms of the previous years, this is your second year as the head coach. I know you had a state champion last year. How did things go last year, and what are you looking forward to this upcoming year kind of transferring over?
Yeah, so last year we had lots of high placers, especially at region, and a few at state. We had, I think, 5 at state place and a state champion who graduated last year. But we had another couple that were right there in the hunt that were either 3rd, 4th place, and we got 5 of those returning, and I think we have 19-ish, 18-ish kids returning from last year that have placed at region.
So who are some of the kids this year that you're really looking forward to, and some people that we as the audience should be keeping an eye out for over at North Summit?
Yeah, for sure. I think some of our top dogs this year are going to be some of our seniors. Riley Brundy, he should be pretty good. He should be about 138 this year. He placed, I think he was 5th last year, but may have been 6th. My mind's, not quite there, but he's coming back. I think one of our heavy favorites, and probably the one that most people focus on, is Cutler Blomqvist. He's a junior this year, and he really killed it up last year. I mean, he was pretty well perfect throughout the year for most things. He just had one quick move go his wrong way at state, or he probably would have been a state champion last year too.
Yeah. In terms of the 2A scene, where do you think North Summit ranks amongst those in the 2A scene? I mean, there's not a ton of schools in 2A, but there is a lot of competition there. And so I'm curious, where do you think North Summit ranks amongst some of the top teams in the state?
I think realistically we're within the top 4. I think Millard is by far probably the best. They returned 24 kids, I think, 25 kids. So they returned most of their team, and they ran away with it last year. So I think we're in the top 4 with Beaver and probably Duchesne or San Juan being in there. But I think we have anywhere a shot from being from 2 to 4.
Yeah. What about you? Where does your wrestling background come from? What makes you the wrestling coach here? What have you done in the past?
Yeah, so I grew up wrestling ever since preschool, pretty much. My dad was a wrestler. He took 3rd twice and like 5th, I think, another time. And so he kind of just brought me here in preschool and pretty much stuck through the ranks, took state twice in junior high, and then got into high school and I took 3rd twice and state my senior year. So that kind of drove me to want to help kids see that success as well.
And so dealing with that I mean, it's always interesting to me. It's always fascinating to me, the sport of wrestling specifically. It truly is probably the most difficult sport of all. And being someone who is advanced at it, being someone who is really good at it, it's a lifetime of dedication to this sport. For you, where does your passion of wrestling come from?
I think my passion of wrestling comes from the success that I see kids have. I think wrestling is one of those sports that is the hardest in my mind as well, but it uses all of your muscles, all of your balance. It's you on the mat. Like, you need a team to be around you to rally you, but when it comes down to it, it's you on the mat. It's your success that comes along. So I think for me, my passion for wrestling is that, seeing people succeed.
I think when it comes to a lot of passionate coaches who love the sports that they coach, they come with a lot of ideas of what the sport is, what it should be, and how to grow and build a team. And not just that, but teach these kids how to become the best people they can possibly be. What are some of the things that you hope for this team to accomplish outside of just being on the mat?
Yeah, so one of our mottos, well, we have a couple of mottos, but specifically this year is believe to achieve. That's kind of our motto. And I feel like wrestling in that sense helps us to believe to achieve anything we can. And so wrestling sets us up, and I feel like as we teach the kids that you can do anything you put your mind to, I think that's going to set them up forward for their work when they graduate school, or when they're doing something hard outside of school. They can be like, okay, if wrestling was hard and we have this mindset of we can achieve it, then we can do it, because this is going to be a breeze.
When it comes to this year, what are the looks like? Are there enough kids on this team where everybody's going to be able to have, a good, in the same weight class training partner and things like that? Are there enough personnel on this team that everyone's going to be getting good looks in the practice room all season?
Yeah, I think that's one thing we have an advantage of that we didn't have when I was in school. When I was in school, we had 7 kids in the room, and so there wasn't anyone that was close to your weight to practice with. But now we have a good amount of kids. I think everyone will have good practice partners that are going to push them each day. But also we brought in a coaching staff this year that is stronger, that has 5 or 6 state champions on the team, and they can wrestle with the kids, which helps them, the kids themselves, get even better.
That's something I wanted to ask you about. I know it's a smaller school, obviously, in North Summit, and so I wasn't sure how many would be on this coaching staff. How many coaches are going to be here every single day?
Yeah, so normally we only have about 3 coaches. However, this year I've kind of reached out to a few more that are kind of volunteering, essentially, because we don't always have the money for extra coaches, but they've wanted to put in the time, and so we're going to have about 5 to 6 coaches this year.
When it comes to practice, you're starting practice, I think, in a couple of weeks. Is that correct?
Correct. November 7th is our first day.
Okay, so November 7th, that seems to be the date for everyone. I mean, basketball's starting their tryouts on November 7th. The wrestling room opens up on November 7th as well. And so with that all being said, have you been able to keep track of some of the wrestlers? What have they been up to this summer? What have they been kind of doing this summer?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of our wrestlers do freestyle wrestling all summer long, all year long, basically. And some of those kids that have wrestled is Riley Brundy, Cutler Blomquist, but also Colby Jones, he's been wrestling all summer long. But most of our other athletes, because it is such a small school, have been either in the weight room for one, or doing other sports. We have a lot on the football team, and some on the golf, and some on cross country. And I think doing other sports really helps them compete, helps them to be better athletes. So I encourage them to do lots of different sports. So most of our athletes are doing another sport right now.
Do you ever worry, because of how tough wrestling is, that it is really important to have multiple sports, because you can really burn out in a sport that's as tough as wrestling?
Oh, for sure. I know many wrestlers that have went by the wayside because that's all they focused on. But I like the diversity, I guess you could call it, of having the other sports in their background. It teaches them different things that they might need. Like wrestling teaches you how to tackle in football better, and vice versa. Football teaches you different wrestling things. So, yeah.
I've been telling a lot of football players that specifically, or hey, if you're really good at football, you should try out wrestling, because it's definitely something that can help you on the field for sure, especially if you're on the line or something like that, in terms of takedowns and things like that. When it comes to you, Coach, why do you coach? I ask every coach this question. What is it about coaching that makes you love it so much?
I really think it's the success of the kids. I like seeing the kids really learn and grow and have success. I just want to give back, I guess. I think that's my biggest reason for coaching is helping the kids achieve their true potential.
Last question from me. When it comes to over the last just 2 years, but I believe, have you been an assistant in the past here?
Yeah, I've helped for about 5-6 years.
Okay, so over the last 5 to 6 years, what would you say is maybe the highlight of your wrestling career as a coach so far?
That's a good question. I think seeing the kids take state. I had a few. I specifically, in the past, have worked with the heavyweights, wrestling. We had a few take state that he was a great wrestler, but the other kid was just as tough, that he was wrestling in the finals, and he took state. And I think probably just seeing him, how happy he was after coming and jumping and tackling me, like after the match, and I think that was probably one of the highlights.
Well, Coach, we absolutely cannot wait for it. We're going to be covering North Summit Wrestling a whole lot more. We didn't do it enough last year. We apologize for that. We're going to be here this year as much as we possibly can. We can't wait for this season.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the time. Thank you. All 4 teams still in play as we head into the second week of playoffs, and there are a handful of tough matchups. But as we saw last Friday night, these teams in the Wasatch back are fully capable of pulling off upsets and being considered the top of their classes. We're going to kick things off with the toughest matchup this week, and it's got to go over to the Park City Miners, who travel to Lehigh on Friday night to face the #1 seeded Pioneers. Lehigh is beating teams by an average of 37 points this season. It is going to require a nearly perfect game for the Miners to knock off this undefeated squad. But what does that actually look like? We talked to Andy Watanabe about what the Miners need to do defensively in order to come up with their biggest win of the entire season.
We do a good job. We got a little sloppy there in the third quarter, but our secondary really shuts down, and Lehigh loves to pass a lot. So if we can get that same shutdown, get 2 interceptions again, maybe cause 2 fumbles again, that gives us a way better chance, gives us more chances to score in Lehigh. So.
All right, next up, we have the team that shocked the 5A class last week, and it is none other than the Wasatch Wasps, who ran away with a 27-28 victory over the 10th seeded Woods Cross team. This Friday's matchup is absolutely fascinating as they take on Spanish Fork, the #7 seed and the dealer of Wasatch's second biggest loss of the entire season. However, Coach Coburn believes that this team is better than the one that faced them back in September.
I want you all to know you're all our rivals, and we are going to play the same way against all of you, and that goes back 6-8 years now, but I told them you're all my rivals. So it is a region rival, and we need to avenge the way we played the last time we played against them, because it was probably a worst game of the year for us, and these players know that. It was on senior night, and so it did not go the way we wanted it to go. But again, we feel pretty confident now going into this game, but we got to, again, go play a higher ranked team and take care of it on their field.
And like Park City, the defense is going to be key here. Making stops, keeping the ball out of the hands of Spanish Fork's dominant offense will be the difference maker in this game, according to Tavian Edwards.
I do my job, and if Caden Luke does his job and Crew Erickson does his job, we're going to win no matter what. And I think on the defense aspect, we did that. Every single play, we had somebody doing their job 100% of the time, which is why it was such a defensive battle during the game.
So now you have a big game against Spanish Fork. You get a rematch. You lost to them 20-53 just a couple of weeks ago. What are going to be the keys? What do you need to change in order to have a better game this time around?
We're going to have to stop their run game for sure. The run game is going to be a big stop for us. If we can stop the run game, it's going to be a battle. It's going to come up to our offense, see if we could score. I think I'm feeling pretty confident, very confident about this game.
All right, next up, there are two teams who have not played yet in the playoffs, and those are the North Summit Braves as well as the South Summit Wildcats. Let's start things off with the North Summit Braves, who have a tough matchup against the number 2 team in the entire 1A class in Enterprise. Enterprise averaging 32 points per game and only giving up 12 points per game. Now, an interesting stat for Enterprise is that they are averaging 13 of their 32 points per game in the very first quarter. So, stopping them early in the game could be a huge key factor in taking down the heavily favored Wolves. And lastly, we have the South Summit Wildcats, the number 1 seeded undefeated squad. After a 14-day layoff, gets the chance to take on Delta in the quarterfinal game in Camas. Now, South Summit is averaging 38 points per game and give up less than a touchdown per game on average. These Wildcats have been playing in midseason form all season long, and one of the most important parts of this team is star receiver KLB Thompson, who will be suiting back up following his scary ankle injury back at week 9.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was broke. I was freaking out, but we got the MRI and the x-ray back and high ankle sprain, so I've been doing therapy, so I should be back for our quarterfinal game. So
now, their opponent Delta sits at 4-7 on the season, but that might be a little misleading. They have won 3 of their last 4 games and have been peaking at the right time. South Summit's defense will be key in stopping Delta's offense, who has averaged 28 points per game over this 4-game run. There is 4 games all over the state of Utah taking place between our 4 schools. We wish good luck to everyone, and we will have all the updates on our Instagram as well as our Tuesday show. Hey, thank you so much for watching the Scoreboard. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking a whole lot more about the 4 football teams, how they did, how things play out here tonight, all across the entire state of Utah. We've got 3 teams on the road. We are going to be in Camas tonight, and on Tuesday we'll have a reaction as well as a whole lot more. There's much to look forward to and a lot of people still to give shine to, considering that the Park City mountain biking team came away with the Coach of the Year, a state champion, as well as a top 5 finish in the entire state. For Brent Martindale, I am Blake O'Rourke, and we will see you all on Tuesday.